While the term proprioception is not an everyday term that's tossed around the dinner table, it certainly is a lot more common if your child struggles at all with things like motor tone development, a weak core, delayed walking or talking, sensory processing disorder, autism spectrum disorder, and maybe even ADHD or anxiety. Because the thing is, at the core of all of those neurodevelopmental challenges in kids, there's issues with proprioception. But this also means having a good understanding of what proprioception is and how important it is to the developing brain of a child and even us as adults, and how it gets thrown offline and how to whack in early childhood by stressors and injuries that come up as a result of birth interventions, things like C-sections, inductions, forceps, and vacuum assist. Oh, we know that these understanding is super important for parents to have. So moms, dads, sisters, cousins, brothers, aunts, uncles, grandparents, neighbors, acquaintances, if you know a child who is struggling with any of that stuff that we just talked about, or they have things going on with their motor function, tone, coordination, sensory processing, speech delay, so forth, and most especially parents, if your kid's already in OT, PT, and speech, and they're either plateauing or they're kind of getting mixed results, where you're not seeing them quite as fast or complete as you'd like, this is right up your alley. We're going to break down proprioception, motor tone and development, the vital role it plays in sensory processing, behavioral and emotional regulation, focus and memory, and guess what? There's more. On the front page of our website, if you scroll down past old Benny getting adjusted there at the top, you'll see a rotating carousel of amazing stories of kids whose lives have been improved by neurologically focused chiropractic. And I'd like to take just a second to share a story of one of them with you guys. You can look through the rest of them. They are, and I'm so lucky to be able to share these with you. But if you look at this little guy named Joseph, he struggled with anxiety, SPD, and low muscle tone. And now he's a happier, more relaxed, and he has better posture. Just overall, huge improvement. In addition to struggling with anxiety and SPD, he also had digestive issues and constipation that led to bowel blockages. His mom had been everywhere. She'd done numerous types of testing. She's done all sorts of specialists. She's done a ton of different therapies. And the end result was always kind of the same. She'd seen improvements here and then a plateau there. But overall, she was left with a tired, scared, sick little boy. And when each new medication just started causing other new problems, she knew it was time to make a change. In her relentless search for hope, answers, and help, Joseph's mom found neurologically focused pediatric chiropractic and decided, you know what? What can I lose? Time to give it a shot. And the thing is, when Joseph's mom sat down and looked at his scans and was able to have somebody sit and talk with her, not to her, about her son's care, it was like a breath of fresh air. Now, Joseph started and continued into care, and his mom has this to say. She says, Joseph is happier, she's more relaxed, and there's been definite improvements in bowel function, which, hey, that makes everybody happy, but also his posture. He's engaging more in conversation, and he's been fully weaned off of his seizure medication. Now, that's a big thing. His mom says that day by day, he's gaining his life back. And to me, that is just the coolest darn thing ever. So with that in mind, let's dig a little deeper. Here's the thing. Usually when we think of senses, we think of the 5 senses that we learned in elementary school. Vision, smell, taste, hearing, and touch. But that's not it. On top of the vestibular system and feeling vibration and movement, there's also proprioception, our body knowing where it is in space. And this is a very important sense. All the time, our nervous system is sending information to our brain on where our body is in space, on movement, spatial orientation, coordination, motor tone, and a bunch more things. While we're not consciously thinking about it, it's automatic. Proprioception is essential for everyday tasks such as walking, writing, or even reaching for an object, scratching your cheek, adjusting your hat, pushing your hair behind your ears because you don't want to go get a haircut. So while it's largely an unknown behind the scenes thing, it is vitally important. It is crucial to brain development. For a developing child, even a teenager, proprioception is absolutely essential to optimal brain development, function, regulation. Decreased and altered proprioception is highly correlated and connected to the four main neurological conditions that children struggle with today. And those are autism, sensory disorders, ADHD, and anxiety. We can also tack on epilepsy and seizures, though not as common, also have a connection here. The most common insult and injury that alters proprioception and therefore all neurological control of motor tone, coordination, that's birth intervention and trauma. And the reason is it can cause physical injury right to the brainstem, the cerebellum, and you guessed it, the vagus nerve. And these guys control and they coordinate proprioceptive input, all which is going to lead to something called subluxation. Again, that word, subluxation, interference, irritation, whatever you want to call it, it's just a word. It's what it represents that's important. This dysfunction, this irritation through the system. Now, to break it down, this irritation, interference, or as we're going to call it, subluxation today, has three main parts. The first one being misalignment. Things get out of whack. The second part, fixation. Things stay out of whack and decrease proprioceptive input. The really cool thing about all the joints in our body is that they all have tons and tons of these little nerves that measure proprioception. They know joint position sense and where our body is in space. And if we have fixation of a joint that's not functioning properly because it's misaligned, then you're not going to get the correct input coming in through that pathway. Those proprioceptive signals are not going to be accurate because that joint is not in an accurate position. It's not functioning properly. And when it can't move, it can't send the right messages. And when it can't send the right messages, that proprioception system is really just getting kicked in the pants. And the last part of it after that is this neurological interference that comes afterwards. It causes imbalance and it causes dysfunction. You wrap all three of those together, and that, my friends, that's subluxation. And the cool thing is, we can objectively measure this stuff with our scans. And while it is very valid from looking at things from an outward perspective, like PT and OT, in terms of putting them through movement exams and coordination tests to measure that proprioceptive function in their motor tone, well, that's the output. We're looking also at the input. We're digging deeper to find that root cause of the neurological imbalance through our insight scans, specifically our EMG scans. Now, we know when joints are dysfunctional or not doing the right thing, they don't move in the right way, and the musculature that attaches to the different areas that are innervated by the nerves that are irritated and interfered with, they don't function all the way like they're supposed to either. If you look at our model, you see a bunch of different lines: yellow, white, green, blue, red. And then you see the black line. Tell you what, in this instance, the black lines are patient. That white zone, right on that white line, we'll call that our ideal area. And if you kind of look at it, you can see that it's got roughly a glass bottle shape. Now, the important thing here is to say, how similar is the output and the muscular tone and the balance on the left side versus the right? Because we are symmetrical beings and they should be pretty closely correlated. And in this case, you can see that it's not necessarily mirror image. And then also, how well does this fit the pattern? So we've got symmetry and we've got pattern. Both are measures of organization. And what happens when we're really unorganized? It takes more energy to do the things that we need to do. Waste, burn. It's a lack of efficiency. So if we look at the metric at the bottom on the left, we see energy index. And while I usually like to see this between 100 and 150, you can again see that that is not the case. This is our body that is confused. It is not sending the right information upward. And as a result, we are wasting so much more energy than we need to because of a proprioception problem. And that's the really cool thing about these scans. They give us an insight into what's happening within that nervous system. And since they are an objective tool that we can measure again and again and again, we can track progress with them. And what I love to see is when we see these objective measures change, the things that we can measure, then the things that you see on the outside coming in, those things also change because those are tied to that internal state. As we make each gentle neurotonal adjustment, we are stimulating specific parts of the nervous system, and we know that when nerves fire together, they wire together, and it really helps improve this proprioceptive input. So we know what it is. We know how to detect it. We know how to take care of it. What are we waiting for? If your kids are struggling with proprioception or other related conditions and you're not seeing the results that you want to see so far, if you're looking for deeper answers, check us out. I'd love to share more with you about how neurologically focused chiropractic is often the missing link in helping kids to improve their proprioception and their overall neurological development. So hit me up with questions, shoot me a DM, send me a carrier pigeon. I don't care. Whatever you got to do, I'm here in any capacity that you need me. Can't wait to meet you. Talk to you soon. Take care.